Alec, welcome back to Black Mirror.
Yes, here it is again to the final episode of the first season. Their little interval that we're doing in between Survivor seasons.
Hmm.
We're watching Black Mirror. Typically, we would be reacting to Survivor. That's a big aspect of our channel, but we thought, hey, it'd be nice to take a little bit of a break. And what better way to do it than a short season of a TV show that we're both interested in that I've never seen before? He's taking me along for the ride,
Yeah,
like yet again.
it's another ride. Yeah,
Yeah, another ride, yeah.
very different ride. Yeah, and they're nice little. Most of the seasons are fairly short. The longest ones are episodes, and it's luckily a show that you don't need to like keep up with. It's not like, oh, I
Mhm.
forgot what happened in the first season because it doesn't matter. It's an anthology series, and it's cool. So every week's a new adventure, basically.
Mm.
Last time we had 15 million merits. That was a great episode. Great episode.
Yeah, the slow build up and burn to the end was just awesome. Great episode. I loved it. It was very Twilight Zone inspired. It felt very to me. So,
Hmm. So this one will be interesting to get into. It's called The Entire History of You. All
hmm
right. Not much to say beforehand, but you can click the link in the description to see the reaction and then come back afterwards for the discussion. All right.
cool. Sounds like a plan. Well, there you
Uh,
go.
there it is. That's The Entire History of You. Black Mirror, episode 3. What
I
do you
just have a whole. I just have like a in the
What do
background
you
now.
think? What do you think? How you feeling?
That was a really interesting episode. That was absolutely fascinating. Um, wow. I think it's cool because of how well it explores like in a small setting both the positives and the negatives of this technology and this idea. And like this vignette I think is a pretty it's an interesting example of why having this is a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
Probably. I mean, I think that oftentimes, generally speaking, this episode is about this device that allows you to sort of replay all of your past history. All your events are basically recorded, and you can like rewind and replay it. You can even project that on like a TV screen, um, and yeah, and you can like save stuff. It's basically like hardwire. It's like a hardwire into your brain that records all of your all of the stuff that you see and all your like records all your memories basically, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this technology is really interesting. I always thought it would be cool to replay stuff. It's like,
Mm,
especially like if you can go so many years back, it's like stuff you
yeah,
can't remember vividly. You can actually just see exactly how it was,
yeah.
and that's really fascinating to me. But
I think there's elements of um, that I think are intriguing, right? Because we often think about like the good times that we had back in like whatever high school or college or any other period of time of our lives that was enjoyable or was like a positive experience. Obviously, we want to relive that. Everybody wants to relive that. But I think the danger of that comes with. I mean, we don't. It's interesting because we don't see that much in this episode. They sort of allude to it, and I think you kind of see it at the end. Um, but I think the problem lies that like some of the beauty of life is that it is sort of
everything's like
passing.
temporary. Yeah.
It's temporary in a way, and there's always a season for positives and negatives, and the kind of the tenacity of and the ability of people to be able to and obviously this is speaking generally, this isn't speaking to every person in every situation. There's obviously going to be exceptions when you're speaking generally, but generally speaking the tenacity of the human spirit to be able to move through both positive and horrible experiences and still continue to thrive or to live on and to continue is, I mean, we wouldn't be around if we, life is hard. Life is hard. And that's, I think, why it's intriguing to want to cherish those memories. But I think having them stored maybe in a less tangible way where you can't replay it and obsess over it, the obsession part of it is, I think, the dangerous part.
Yeah. It's quick to see how dangerous this can be.
Yeah.
You just see, looking at the very end where he's replaying the moments where they're like happy in the relationship, and it's like,
yeah.
And I mean, from the beginning, obviously you see the toxicity that can come from it, where it's like you can obsess over things even more than usual because you can actually go back and see it and be like, you know, I was right. Look at this. Look at how she's responding to this. Like every little thing you can analyze that you can't necessarily read into in every moment, but you can just like break down every little thing if you go back. And then like even the fact of how she was bringing up clips and he was bringing up clips to prove their point and stuff in arguments, you know, so you can actually be like, well, no, this is actually what you said. So you can't bullshit stuff. Here's what you literally said. Let me play that for you. Yeah. And then like when he says, sometimes you can be a bitch. Sometimes you're a bitch. Yeah. And then she just plays it. So she can just hold that against him forever if she wanted to. Just keep playing that. Oh, remember when you said this? And yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, except you're forgetting the sometimes in there. So he has to record his side then in order to save that.
So it's a really rough cycle to get into there, where
for sure
like, you can't. No arguments can anymore be like, no, I didn't say that, because it's like, oh well, let me just go check real quick then. All right, pull it out. Yeah, you did say that.
Yeah, you did.
You
actually
did. Here, look.
Yeah, it's and that doesn't make it like super toxic, because it's like, it's just like so much like. We even saw like elements of like social pressure being involved. Be like, oh yeah, let's watch this thing that's kind of embarrassing for you. Come on, everybody, come on. You're not gonna be a square, and yeah.
Because not only can you relive this, but you can throw it up on the screen
for everyone to see.
Wild. I'm trying to think of like scenarios in which that would be a fun thing to do. I just can't imagine. Like the guy at the party, he like threw up like an old party in the background. Like this seems weird, but he just had it in the background, like playing. Yeah,
I was thinking of an instance would be like, so taking a job interview idea, doing that, but one where you're explaining to everybody, man, these people were a bunch of idiots, and I was totally in the right. It wasn't like an embarrassing thing for him where it was like, where he did poorly in the interview, and then they were all kind of gross and standoffish, and so it would be more like there would be an instance where that would be positive if he was also finding humor in it.
Like when you tell stories about like, look, this happened at the grocery store the other day. It's like, oh, let me throw it up for you.
Crazy lady that was behind me, just talking about her 16 cats or whatever. You know, weird things like that. You know, but that could be fun. But then I guess the art of storytelling gets lost. Yeah, because there's some people that, I mean, it might not even be exactly the way they describe, but the fact that they spin a yarn in the ways that they do makes it can make it more entertaining than just watching it.
Yeah, and you know what they don't go into, which definitely would be a thing, is like there'd have to be copyright laws within this, because you could watch a movie, and then you can reuse that and like not have to buy something, you know, or you could show it to your friends. It's like you're pirating this movie through your own memories, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there'd be weird stuff I mean, there's a whole privacy issue there, right? It's like just like secretly recording someone in any context, you know, it can be weird if you just secretly record someone when you're having a private conversation and then show it to someone. But like you can literally take any private moment and show people, so it's like there's definitely privacy could be a big factor there.
Well, and that was a huge thing too early on, when he was like getting on a flight. I was like, ooh, I don't like that at all, where they're like, all right, prove where you were the last 24 hours, and like, oh, and I'm just like, oh, that's so
You say playing
gross.
quad speed
Yeah,
past 24 hours, and then they like.
but it's still freeze framing on
But then
people's
they
faces
said like
and
super
stuff.
speed for like the past month or 6 months or something too.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, I don't
Which
like
like I
that.
guess that would be useful. It's like you can say, oh, here's they're planning to bomb a plane
A
or
plane, yeah,
so okay, let's not put this
sure,
person.
but
But
that's it. It gets to the point of like was it Minority Report or what was there was like that sci-fi movie where it was like they could predict like murders or terrorist attacks before they happen
hmm
because of some technology. Like stuff like that is, that's scary. That to me is way more scary than it's it's sort of like devolving or not devolving, but like sort of I guess dissolving and and fraying uh, your own sort of human relationships. The people who are prone to obsession would definitely, but I think it's way scarier to have the government involved.
hmm
I think that's horrifying. I would hate that.
but it's like how does it work? You can delete parts of it, but so they have to be able to access that somewhere, right? Because
Yeah,
otherwise,
so
then
that would
like,
be like, you delete. What's this part you deleted? And
but
then
then
yeah,
what do you
there'd
do?
probably be
How do
like
you
a whole thing.
investigate it? Like, what would be the point of deleting it if they can just pull it up anyway?
Well, they would so. This is just a whole entirely hypothetical, but basically, from what I would assume, what they would have to do is either they wouldn't let you travel and you'd be held on suspicion for something, or they would look at like what was there that wasn't like things that weren't recorded. I feel like they would probably like check the stuff that was before and after the blank moment to
hmm
like sort of piece together. Oh well, okay. There's these people were there, and these people were there in the after one. So we'll have to contact them and get their side of the story. So there'd have to be like a compilation of evidence and stuff to
Yeah,
prove
but it's
that.
like if you're committing a crime actively, it's like you're obviously going to delete that part.
Yeah,
So it's like where's like the proof is in the pudding thing? Because the first thing you think of is like, okay, this is you can directly incriminate yourself by having
yeah,
this technology. But if you can just delete it on a whim, then it's like you don't. If you just delete the crime and no one was there for it, it's like how do you prove
yeah.
it?
I mean, that's not really what the episode was about, though. I think we're getting a little maybe
That's the
too into the
technology,
details.
bro. This
It is the tech. No, it is the technology, but that's not ultimately what the episode is about. It's about people and relationships, is what the episode is about.
we really hope to look forward to seeing
To
you
seeing
again.
you again. I love that. That was like the most. That was the most. That was that was like the worst thing I've ever heard. It's like we hope to look forward to seeing you again.
and
I
then
really couldn't try to be any
And then
more realistic.
I'm a serial monogamist. I'm faithful to my cornflakes right now.
That's one of the worst lines. Is that funny? Please tell me that's fun.
But
It
something I
can't be.
noticed about this episode, even throughout all the scenes, is that they focused a lot of the shots focused on the facial expressions a lot, which makes sense and it works for the episode because then
Mm,
they always emphasize it when he's doing the redos. You zoom in on the facial expressions, and that's what he's reading into. So it's cool that they directed it in that way too.
that's yeah. The direction of even when we're not replaying, a lot of it is on on facial expressions and stuff. That is great. I totally agree.
All the little bits, because I
Um,
guess you would probably be more mindful than of facial stuff like that, and like little
mm,
minor things, because then you can always rewind it if you want to.
right, and that to me is just like that's such a. I feel like that would be such an unhealthy thing. I mean, I don't know about you, but I know there are moments that I think of back in parts of my life where I think about sometimes and I just like cringe
Yeah.
to think that I would have the ability to. Well, here's the thing: erasing it, I feel like would be harmful in a way too. I don't. I actually don't know how theoretically that would work because theoretically you would still have the memory of that, but you
You
just
have the
wouldn't have the
memory.
recording.
It's just like a whole
Yeah,
other layer, because it's like you have the memory,
yeah,
but there's a direct visual representation of it.
yeah,
Just like with all of our memories, you can't like picture
yeah.
everything vividly, but
Right.
this actually does that. So yeah, you would just have to live off of the memory, which is what we deal with right now. So
Yeah, but
yeah.
it would still suck to even have the ability to have to go rewind and then erase it because
hmm
then you have to see it in even more vivid detail and it would stick in your mind even more even when you're erasing it. So it's like yeah, I mean, there's definitely like stuff I think of sometimes where I'm like, wow, I can't believe I did that, or man, I was really stupid.
Yeah. Do
Like
you
there's
think they're gonna be like? It's called grain, by the way. Do you think there would be grain content creators to make like cringe compilations of themselves? To like my life cringe compilation.
Probably, yeah. I mean, why
Here's
wouldn't
some
there be?
cringy
Why not?
moments from my life. Yeah, it's like just here's a good memories compilation. Like there'd just be so much weird stuff that you get out of that too. And people would like, I mean, people could straight up make weird like artistic artsy movies out of it too. Like use your eyes
Yeah,
as the camera. It's like
yeah, for sure.
and you're directing a movie with your memories. I could see stuff
You
like
could
that.
do that theoretically, yeah.
And but they showed how when he was going to go into the party, he was like he rewound to remind himself of the details of people.
Yeah,
So he'd be like, "Oh, you're from
yeah.
this," and you remind yourself of people's names.
Because it was a group of her friends, so it's like that's
Yeah.
why he was sort of out of place.
But that's like, yeah, that's 100%. Then it's like that's 100% what a lot of people would do, and it's like it
Yeah,
would be so hard to tell what's genuine. Like, oh, it was so thoughtful of you to remember this, or like
yeah, because you're just
small
like,
things
yeah,
like that. Yeah, you
he
probably
probably,
rewind
yeah,
that.
because in the back of your mind, it's like, yeah, he probably didn't really remember me, and because like things like that
Yeah.
would automatically come up in your brain to be like, did he really remember me, or did he use the grain to get that back, So
Yeah. And then they shoot a character called Hallam that doesn't have a grain. Now, how
yeah,
does that work when you go into security and you're supposed to rewind the past 24 hours of your grain? What does she do? She's not get to go on planes?
maybe not. Maybe she doesn't get to go on planes. I mean, we sort of talked about what we were reacting in during the episode. You were like, hey, I don't know if you noticed, but the police like straight up hung up on her. It seemed like they did anyway. Something
Yeah.
happened where it's like
Yeah,
she's
she told him that I know I don't have a grain, so I can't send it to you or whatever.
yeah,
Uh, and he was just like, "Hello, hello, are you there?"
yeah.
And she's like, "Jesus Christ."
Yeah, yeah. Because then he's like, all right, I'm gonna stab you.
So it's almost like they view them as second class citizens because
Yeah,
it's not like it's an unknown thing of someone not having a grain. It's like, oh, this is a prank call. It doesn't have a grain. It's like, no, this is a known thing that there are people out there that don't have them,
yeah.
but they just don't care about them. Like what?
Yeah, and like one of the guys even says like, oh, well, it's a growing thing. It seems to be a thing that's growing. I don't.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, considering what happened in this episode, I can see that continuing to happen. Though I
Yeah,
don't know
we
if
can
I
see
would.
it being a whole like social movement for sure.
Yeah,
And the point they made about is that it was that political because she said she was gouged a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Gouged is the terminology for it.
yeah. That was that
And
political,
is that
like
political?
making a statement or whatever.
Definitely, that would be a whole political thing. Especially, I mean, if you can make masks political, then you can make anything political.
You can make anything political. Yeah, honestly, that's I think one of my favorite little tiny details in the whole episode because that evokes like all kinds of possibilities.
Because that definitely masks is ridiculous. That's a political thing, but
that is a political, yeah.
But this is like you could see definitely an argument to be made. Like,
oh sure,
it's like the whole
NSA
NSA surveillance
yeah
debate. It's like
yeah.
It's like, well, if you don't have anything to hide, then you shouldn't be opposed to having a grain.
But it's like, I'd be like, no, you don't need to know anything that I'm doing because that's not your right to be privy to in my life,
Yeah, it'd be a whole thing. But then it's like, well, now we're at the point where we have grains, so as a security clearance thing, that should just be the standard. So you should not be allowed to go through these or go on planes or whatever without it. And that's tough. That's your choice, but you don't have you're not owed the privilege to go on this plane. So
maybe you'd have like a USB stick with like, here's a bunch of like people's memories of me recently, where I could prove that I was
that would be
not doing horrible things. But
yeah.
And then they'd have to like comb through the footage to make sure it wasn't like doctored in some way. Because they also mentioned that like memories can be implanted and recordings can be faked. Because and that falls in the same way that like we sort of were talked about, or I brought up when we were reacting to it. But Yeah, your memories can 100% lie to you. You can remember something that's like, no, it happened this way, and you be completely 100% convinced of the fact that this thing happened, but it didn't. You know, there's time and again, our memories are not perfect. Human error crops up. We can't necessarily. I don't want to say it's like you can't trust your memory, but it's like your memory can make stuff up. It can fill in the gaps with stuff that you don't always remember, and it can lie to you. So,
and that's why people would be rewinding all the time.
Yeah, get obsessed. You gotta remember everything. You gotta, yeah.
I mean, they showed the literally using the baby as the nanny cam. Like, there's so many different ways they use this technology where it's like,
which is crazy. That means that you can. That means you can use it. You can use it on people without their will, because the baby's not consenting. The baby's just living.
Yeah, it's just like, the parent's choice kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously that's a whole other thing. But I think just the fact that you could potentially have the technology be used in a way where someone doesn't have to say yes, they don't have to verbally be like, yes, you can view it. It's like, no, we'll figure out a way to like have access to it. You know, it's like,
but like, how much can you store like on there?
You know, that wasn't. I don't think that was ever really stated.
Because they went years back, but I thought they had an ad talking there was some sort of grain technology they were talking about in an ad early on.
Oh, maybe.
I don't remember exactly what it was said in there, but I don't know if you need to get certain upgrades for it to last a certain amount of time. Otherwise, like, you can literally, it would be wild that you could view your memories as a baby. You know.
Yeah.
It's things you literally
that would
can't
be
remember.
Yeah.
You can go back and watch. That would be wild. But yeah, we saw the sex scene where they were viewing old redos while they were doing it. So that's another like toxic element.
Oh, yeah, that was horrible. I was like, this is I'm not, nothing about this is okay.
And I was saying before, you don't know for sure what they're looking at if you're doing that.
Yeah.
So it's another whole trust thing. So she could have been looking at Jonas while doing that. It's a problematic situation.
It's extremely problematic, considering that, like, we find out she's been a big fat liar in the whole relationship. Yep. And the baby's probably not even his, but you find out towards the end.
Yeah, she's like,
it's like, that's real rough.
First it was a week, now it's a month, now it's 6 months. The ever-inflating romance.
Yeah. And then it's like, 18 months ago.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that was...
And so it's interesting because, like, so we do see this all from his perspective. So we do have to kind of give some credit to... So, like, because what was the instance where she said, like, oh, you were gone for 5 days or something? Like, the thing with... I wasn't certain. So was that, like, a time where, like, he was like, I need a break or something? Or was it, like, he was out on a trip? I kind of...
Yeah. No, they mentioned a name, like Dan, right?
Yeah, Dan. Yeah, Dan.
And they mentioned it earlier. I can't remember what exactly.
I'm trying to remember what the context exactly was.
But it seemed like he got upset over... Because you said you're obsessing over this kind of like that situation.
Oh, you said with Dan, you obsessed with him too. Yeah, because he was obedient. So he probably was like, all right. He probably like went on like a tirade and he was like, all right, he probably was like, I need to have a break from this or whatever. And then so he left for 5 days. In the
5-day break, she goes over to Jonas.
Yeah, which is like, that's messed up, man.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Days. Very noble of you.
Yeah, I was like, it's like, dang, girl, you couldn't, like, I get the fact that you're in a rocky place, but
yeah, I can't sympathize with someone who says they felt alone or something. You know, like, you weren't around. It's been 5 days.
It's like, oh wow, yeah. It's like, okay, but I came back. Like, like, yeah. It's like, you don't do that until they make it very clear. Hey, this is over. Which he hadn't, because they hadn't communicated that. It's that's so messed up.
I mean, that's
so messed up. And
that's always the story thread of like a cheating situation. Yeah. Always the reasoning is that I felt alone. You're never home, or you're always
Yeah.
out. But like this time, it's like 5 days.
Yeah, it's just like
Come on.
that's rough. That's real rough. Yeah, I mean, but he's no saint either. We see in this episode he obviously he has a very obsessive personality, which is super
Bad
toxic
combination with this.
with this technology. It's a very bad combination. Gets drunk, threatens this guy. Ultimately, it results in he gets all the information that he needs,
Right.
but at what cost?
Like he's got a keen attention to detail. I'll give him that. Like
Yeah, yeah,
he rewound to the whole moment, and then he pinpointed in the memory that there was their painting in the
yeah. He
background.
really makes one heck of a lawyer, huh? That's what he was. That's what he was apparently trying to be establishing a firm somewhere. I guess is what he was interviewing for. But yeah,
Yeah,
you just
and
have
but
quite
that
an
is also
attention.
an interesting idea. The fact that like when you're drunk and you don't remember this period of time, it's like, oh well, let me see what happened. Rewound it
Yeah,
back, and was able to see it all play out.
yeah,
And like you were saying, the whole it's like notifying you, like we did not advise you to be driving right now. Like that's a good
yeah.
technology to have.
Yeah, I think there are some like pseudo technology, not exactly like that, but I think there are some things where it's like there are certain technologies like that have been sort of implemented in vehicles, but nothing that serious.
But I mean, it did
Um,
nothing to stop him.
yeah,
He did not care.
yeah,
So
he was able to just override it or whatever. But yeah, I think the great part is that the car was also informing, or the device and the car was basically informing him, yeah, we're not liable for any damages that you do should you disregard this, which is
hmm
kind of like that's like automobiles 101. That's like in all the like automobile stuff. It's like, yeah, we're not liable for any of that stuff that you do because you're the one operating the vehicle, stupid.
hmm
So
So then ultimately, in the end, his solution is that he has to remove the grain. Like he can't take it anymore. Uh,
he couldn't have gone and had a procedure
could have done it
done.
professionally. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Well,
just seemed
get
like
yourself gouged.
that's a real rough way to do it. You're like tearing into your like this like this pretty it's lodged in pretty decently in there into
I
the
thought I
neck
remembered there
tissue.
being at some point they mentioned where you could have like some sort of brain damage from like doing something like that,
Hmm.
but like he took
Yeah,
that risk. Uh, that whole ending sequence was really, it was effective to me because it's like him looking back
I think it's
right
very
right
powerful. I
before
thought,
before he was about to take it out. He's like looking back at the good moments of the relationship, like just the tiny little moments where she's like looks back and smiles at him because all he remembered was like the way she was looking at him through the whole Jonas
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
It was like, look at how you look at
I
him, and how you look at me.
yeah, yeah. It is, yeah, it is interesting that like so arguably he came to a positive result as despite his horrendous actions because he sussed out the truth, but at what cost, right?
Yeah, like that's Depression City right there.
It's
He was
rough.
replaying it, and then he took it out, and now it's like, where do you go from there? I don't know. This guy was obsessed with replaying stuff, so now what are you doing
Yeah,
with yourself? I don't know.
yeah. It's interesting. I think that like
I feel like this technology would ruin me. Like,
I think it would ruin. I mean, I think that's the whole thing. It ruined this guy. Really. But I guess maybe you could argue in a way that it did sort of save him because even though he did all of these horrible, terrible things to his wife and his wife's friends, I mean, he was able to find out of just how terrible she was. So what's better, living in blissful ignorance or now being free of this obsession?
you know,
And
yeah, I'd
it's
be
rough.
curious to see how the rest of his life goes, though. Like,
The ends
is it,
don't justify the means, though. That's the only thing.
yeah.
Like he straight up threatened to slice a guy's neck open. Um, but yeah,
But how do you feel? Like, would you have a grain, or you be an anti-grainer?
I think it's way too scary. It's way too scary of a technology. I would not be for it. I think because I think Well, I think kind of what we talked about early on. I think it's tempting to want to relive and like re-enjoy and re-see some of the like once in a lifetime experiences that we've had, or the really really positive good memories that we've had with maybe friends or family or
Mm-hmm.
loved, in lovers relationships. There are things like that that are very tempting to want to relive, but I think that that in and of itself is extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
um and I think that like using it toxically to other people aside, I think for your own health and benefit, I feel like, for my own health and benefit, I would weigh the costs and be like, no, this would just be a net. This would be a net negative. I think ultimately.
I'd like to think so. I don't think I'm strong enough to resist this technology, though. I really don't. I feel like I'd have to.
It's I mean, here's the thing: everybody has it. That's the thing. That's the thing about all these. It's like, oh, everyone has it, or everybody has like a. So there's like a peer pressure element to it in this, right?
Yeah,
So
this is something like I've like imagine would be cool to replay memories, especially when memories get hazy and stuff. To actually be able to go back and see it 100%.
yeah,
Um, go back into old memories, but yeah, that's just like that spells depression for sure. It's
yeah,
like when you're depressed, it's gonna just intensify it because you're gonna, especially if you're down on hard times,
yeah,
you just look back at the good times and you're just getting more and more depressed, just
yeah. Because it's just like, why can't it be like this? Why can't it be like this? Why
just
can't it be
thinking
like
about
this? That's all that.
if you're missing
Yeah.
someone, like, oh man, talk about like grief, right?
Mm.
You have a loved one that dies, you're gonna be just constantly looking at those memories, right?
I mean, hey, maybe you could argue the fact that she was getting obsessive too. Maybe that was why she gave into the weakness, because she was like looking back on all the times with her and her hubby, and he stepped out, and she was looking back at like, oh, all the good times. Oh, I mean, this isn't excusing the cheating, because that's just messed up, girl. Like, what the heck? What was wrong with you? But that obsession too may have ruined her in the end
Mm-hmm.
as well. So I mean, that's the interesting thing. It's a very framed on his perspective. It would be interesting to see this from her perspective as well. This sort of same kind of idea, the same episode sort of structure.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But that's just mind, like just thinking about
mm,
it, just messes with your mind thinking about how bad that
yeah.
could be because
Oh yeah.
everything like you're talking about past relationships, you talk about friends that aren't in your life anymore, you talk about family members and friends that have literally died. You're like,
Yeah.
you're not gonna get over it. You're gonna be replaying stuff all the time,
Oh
just
yeah.
just to see it again, and then it's just like the cycle will be vicious of.
It's a poison, really. Ultimately, it's
But
kind
it's
of
like
like
they've adapted it to their society to where maybe it wouldn't be that devastating. Where unlike if it were to just be introduced to society now, it definitely would be. Maybe their world has like adapted around it, so it's not as toxic. But
we see it used toxically
yeah,
multiple times here.
but
So
that is the exception. That's what I'm saying. Like the
yeah.
toxic part is like you can tell that's not the norm because everybody else seems to be having a fine time using it and they're functioning well.
Well, no, I mean, I would think
Like the
I think
parties.
the peer pressure element, it to me is also toxic,
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, come on, show it to us, show it, man. And then, I mean, Cool Man was like, yo, bro, he doesn't want to. It's cool, dude, or whatever he said. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So
That's true.
yeah,
Yeah, this is really.
interesting. This is extremely well acted. I will say the acting was great in this.
Mm-hmm.
I joked that the main character was like the most British looking person ever, and I still kind of side with that, but he was great.
He was quite British, all things considered.
Yeah, he was. In fact, I would say he was British. He is quite British.
His name was
um,
Liam. Yeah, he was great. They were both great. Like,
yeah, Jodie Whittaker is. I think she's a phenomenal actress, and that's I said during our reaction. I think she's been screwed over by bad writing in Doctor Who. I really think so.
and I mean,
I
you
think
have to
she.
have good acting for something like this, where they're replaying stuff and going into the little
Yeah,
zoom in and see the minor facial.
yeah, the little freaking zoom in thing, man. Can you imagine? Be like, He was at the scene of the crime. We'll go to the replay here. Like zoom in. There he is.
We have an eyewitness account.
An eyewitness
Literally
account. You can like you zoom in.
Look at all these eyewitnesses.
Enhance.
Yeah, like you can literally be like, it's no more a case of like, was someone recording? Did someone whip out their phone? It's like, well, all these people saw it. All right, we gotta get all your freaking grains. Let's see what you saw, and see what the story adds up here. So it would be definitely helpful in that kind of stuff, but especially in cases where there are witnesses, and where it's like a lot of times you can't trust eyewitness accounts. It's not super reliable now because like memory is not that strong. People will like they'll remember details that weren't there, and just like when people do the police lineup, that's not reliable either. People so often will pick someone that was not involved at all. So it's like this would be a way to
the police lineup. Maybe they use that to be like, it was him. And they're like, all right, well, that's obviously not the right one then. No, it was him. I'm sure of it. Okay, he can be eliminated.
But it's like you could skip so much of the nonsense here. You just if you can get those first-hand accounts, just look at it. Yeah, it's really interesting technology, and it's cool how they implemented it into this one episode. You saw it on such a small scale, but you just think about it, how much
the scope of it. Yeah, I think it's I love the fact that they did that. I love the fact that they decided such a small an intimate story about such a massively it would be a world-changing technology, but it's like the intimate sort of storytelling between the relationship between a husband and a wife is just great. I think that's such a brilliant writing thing. I thought it was excellent. So
yeah, I want to pull up a comment. Like someone commented on our episode, the first episode is out so far.
I was actually gonna say, I was like, so we're gonna get a comment about how are we missing details? Did we not think about this correctly? Did we miss a detail? Sorry, guy in the comments. I read your comment too, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I guess we that? Sort of. I did, yeah. I don't remember exactly what it said, but
yeah. Okay, so he said 10:10. What did we say at 10:10?
We were talking about. So this is in the first episode of Black Mirror, and we were talking about like, I don't remember exactly, but he was like, "Oh, well,
nice idea for a story, but in that way, I do think it's unrealistic that even Prime Minister, I don't think would value his job enough to do that. Like, there's so many political figures that'll step down for just like the smallest thing." All right, and he said, "You seem to be forgetting that the government and the royal family basically threatened him and his family when they said they can't promise their physical safety. Also, someone, especially a beloved princess, dying because he didn't do something that wasn't life-threatening, just extremely embarrassing, is also traumatic, and why the polls could jump so drastically, especially after basically watching her get tortured when they cut her finger off." Yeah.
I guess. I still 100% stand by what I said and by what you said. I mean, I honestly don't think that detail changes all that much in my perspective of that episode. He did get his they did
it's the fact that
subtly threaten him.
Yeah, there was actual saying that you couldn't guarantee his safety. So it's not like I would never do this in a million years. I guess there would be a reason to do it if you actually think you could not be safe after it, but
right, but think about in this scenario, in this particular scenario, yes, he has no way of knowing that it wasn't actually her and she didn't lose her finger and she was okay. He didn't actually have to do it. So in that scenario, would they actually have, if he was just like, no, I'm not going to do it, and then she was released, would they have like come and killed him? Like, would the royal family would have like hunted him down and killed him, even though she's safe?
No, but they imagine she wouldn't be safe. This is a hypothetical, because he doesn't know what's going to happen. So in the world that she does die because of it, that someone could come and murder him for it, and they're not guaranteeing his safety. Yeah.
I still would be like, you know what, screw this. I still would have been like, I'll go on the run then. it's fine. I won't be prime minister anymore. See ya. I'll step down.
Yeah.
That was what you said there. You were just like, and people have stepped down for way less than that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, all right, that's just in. The prime minister's on the run.
Exactly.
The royal family is in pursuit. Like,
and I did see a comment to describe Black Mirror a little better in terms of the first episode. Like I said, I still say is an anomaly in comparison to the other ones.
mm-hmm.
But I describe Black Mirror as being like it's sci-fi. There's always a futuristic element to it. That's what I was describing it as. But there was a comment on another reaction to it I saw that was describing it as like Black Mirror overall is about the effects of technology on society. So in that way, I guess the first episode is the effects of social media and like how the media spins things and on like the polling and all that. So it fits more in line with that, but it still does feel different, especially when you see the next two episodes. I agree
with that, but that has a distinctly like more morbid and darker tone than these other two episodes have. Like these other two episodes aren't like joyous, happy occasions either, but like they don't involve something so oddly grotesque.
Yeah, the first one was grotesque. I think the second two episodes are more depressing. This is perhaps the most depressing to me of the three, but I think I would agree that they're more somber and I guess I would say depressing in tone. Like that, the pig is just so over the top in comparison to these other ones. It's like as I said, it's grotesque. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of off-putting to people. So,
but like
it was off-putting to me. I was not a big fan of it.
It was weird. 15 million merits and the entire history of you take two unique things of technology to where you can then speculate further into like what ramifications they would have on that world and even on the smaller scope. There's a discussion to be had there, but it's cool to speculate outside of that.
Yeah.
In the first episode, doesn't really have that. It's just social media, which we already have.
Yeah.
So
it's more like actual legitimate social commentary, which I guess is beneficial in that way, but
But these,
I didn't feel like
last
it added
two
anything.
Are cooler. They're cooler in my opinion because you get to speculate and discuss like what it would be like if we had these technology.
There's more there, and it's like a slice in that bigger pie, and that to me is like I like it when stories do that. Because it's like the story ultimately is not about this technology. The technology is a key component and is a key factor. But like the story itself, the actual like message, or maybe not message per se, but what the actual narrative is about is not the technology. It's the technology is basically the world building device.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. I think that's why these two episodes work so well. I've felt anyway. So
that was the entire history of you. I thought it was a solid episode, and it's interesting because on paper it's just about a wife who cheated on her husband. But you add that little technology element, and then it adds so much to it.
Yeah.
So that was season 1. I guess next week we'll come back and do a bit of a review on the season.
Yeah, we already had a little slight review there at the end there, but we'll come back and we'll do it in more detail next time. So
yeah, because then we'll have an extensive break until the next season.
That's right.
Which is like 3 months. It's like basically a 3 months break at least.
Yeah.
Oh man, but it'll be cool. We'll really appreciate it because.
For sure. Then we'll come back to it. It's like welcoming an old friend, an old depressing friend.
Yeah, it's an old depressed friend. Yeah. All right. Well, what video would you recommend our viewers watch after this?
You should go watch. I'm trying to think if there's like interesting things about like replays or anything like that we did, or like recordings, or.
In a way, every Tarqaron episode is a recording
that
we can play back.
True. We can do that.
See it.
You should go check out our. I had something. It go check out our second Survivor simulation. You
Oh.
come here, you're like, Black Mirror, that's interesting. Well, what if we told you that Survivor is actually normally what we watch in this sort of slot in our schedule? And if we did a little simulation about Survivor, it was fun. You should go watch it.
You're really going to get it's a wild transition from this to that, because you got to go from Black Mirror and then suddenly Survivor World, but not only Survivor World, but it's Tarqaron. It's all the Tarqaron things we've reviewed.
It might give you an idea. It might give you just it's just whiplash. It'll give you an idea of the things that we like or don't like.
Tarqaron All-Stars 2 is what it's called. A full-on Survivor simulation with characters from things we reviewed.
Yeah, extreme tonal whiplash. Go for it.
Yeah, and now it's cool because Black Mirror is a part of the Tarqaron universe now. What can we take from Black Mirror? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to take... We're going to put Liam. We're going to put Liam in Tarqaron All-Stars.
Yeah, Liam's there. There he is.
I don't know.
Liam, all right.
I don't know if we have standout characters. I would say probably Bing. What was his name? Bing?
Bing, I think,
He'd be probably more iconic to put in there, but I don't know.
The impassioned speech at the end.
Yeah. Just the Prime Minister. Yeah.
Just the Prime Minister.
The pig.
No.
Rod Senseless.
All right. Do the thing.
Anyway.
Wrap it up.
Jonas. Jonas will be.
Oh, yeah, Jonas. Yeah. He's a bit of a knob, isn't he?
He tosses himself off all on his cashmere blanket. You think you finished? What was the line he said? Where it's like, sometimes you start over there and you finish in here.
Yeah.
You know, is this where you toss yourself off to redos
to my
wife?
Of my wife.
Thank you for
our
watching.
horrible British accents. Yes.
Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to our podcast feed. Like the video. Leave a comment. Hit the notification bell. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Like us on Facebook. Tarqaron TWO.
Yeah.
Yeah.